Okay guys, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. All right guys, it's Thursday, February 27th, and it is 8:40 p.m. Eastern Time, and let's get started. We're going to jump over here right now, and I do have two videos prepared tonight. I do have an update on the coronavirus and another news video, and hopefully I'll get through them both. That's the plan anyway. And I am going to have to use a little bit of code when I'm talking about this first topic because it is so highly censored. But first, I do want to thank a few people. Teresa, David, and Anon, they contributed via coffee. Thank you so much for your coffee donations. They go a long ways to helping this channel. So, and also snail mail. I always like getting snail mail for some reason. You see people's handwritten notes and things in it. I don't know, it's just so personal. But Sue from Hawaii, she sent a lovely note and donation. And by the way, Sue, I do agree with what you said, totally. So, and Frank R. from Staten Island, New York, he just sent a donation. I guess he's a man of few words. That's what I would assume. But thank you, Frank. I appreciate that very, very much. All right, we're going to get into this now, and there's a lot of news on this. Hopefully it's news that you're not hearing in the mainstream media. None of this should be news that you're hearing on the mainstream media anyway. And I've gotten it from many different sources. So let's jump in. We're going to jump in right here. Now, I do want to preface this by saying that I've collected this over a couple days. So some of it is newer information than others, but none of it is more than 2 days old. So let's get going. This from the Daily Mail. Miami cruise ship with 6,100 on board becomes the latest to be turned away over CV fears after Jamaica and Cayman Islands block vessel because crew member was unwell. Cruise ship MSC Meraviglia was blocked from docking in Jamaica on Tuesday, came after crew member who has been to a country of interest linked with CV was placed in isolation with flu-like symptoms. Ship carrying 4,500 passengers and 1,600 crew now going to Cayman Islands, but Caymanian, that can't be how you pronounce that. I'm probably slaughtering that word, but there you go. What would it be if I didn't slaughter a few words? So authorities have already said nobody will be allowed off the ship. Are you on board the ship or know somebody who is? Okay, we're not going to go into all the details. I'm just really after mainly the headlines so that you can get a big overview of what is happening. All right, so let's go on. And we'll come back here, and now this actually is more than a couple days old. Well, let me see, it can't be that. February 26th, so no, it's only a day old. Like her corrupt brother, Rod Rosenstein, the CDC's Dr. Nancy Messonnier drops a bomb on President Trump while on international trip. Well, that's not surprising. That seems to be the case as far as the deep state goes. Now, I'm not saying that she's deep state. I don't know. Just because she's Rod Rosenstein's sister doesn't mean that she's automatically part of the deep state. You know, my brother and I, when he was alive, I loved him dearly and I would have done anything for him, but we are as different as night and day. And we knew that about each other, and we just, you know, decided that, okay, well, we're never going to see eye to eye on just about anything. So we can just respect each other and, you know, stop trying to convince the other one. And so I'm saying that only to say that just because you may not agree with your brother or sister, they may be, you know, you're diametrically opposed to everything they stand for. So not necessarily, a lot of times you become guilty by association, but I think that's unfair. So until we can really perceive her actions, we don't really know that she's part of the deep state. We can only surmise. All right. The brother of CDC's Dr. Nancy Messonnier is the corrupt, disgraced former DAG, Rod Rosenstein. Following in his footsteps, Dr. Messonnier dropped a bomb on President Trump while he was in India yesterday. Yesterday, the CDC unexpectedly announced startling news about the coronavirus in the U.S. This rattled the markets and led to another downturn of hundreds of points in the Dow for the second straight day. As we've seen from recent countries with community spread, when it has hit those countries, it has moved quite rapidly. We want to make sure the American public is prepared, said Dr. Nancy Messonnier, director of the CDC's National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases. As more and more countries experience community spread, successful containment at our borders becomes harder and harder. Well, that's true. Dr. Nancy continued, ultimately, we expect we will see spread in this country. It's not so much a question of if this will happen anymore, but rather a question of exactly when this will happen and how many people in this country will have severe illness, Messonnier said Tuesday. Now, I don't personally think that this is a big bomb. I really don't. I mean, I think anybody with eyes to see and ears to hear knows exactly what we're facing and knows that it's inevitable that it's here, that it comes here. It's already in the U.S. It's already in Canada. In fact, there's very few countries now that it isn't in. Well, I shouldn't say that because I don't think it's definitely, it's on all continents now, definitely on all continents except for Antarctica. And I will be really shocked if anyone in Antarctica gets it. So the doctor continued, I understand this whole situation may seem overwhelming and that disruption to everyday life may be severe, but these are things people need to start thinking about now, said Messonnier, who told her own family to begin preparing for community spread and the resulting significant disruption of their lives. Right now, CDC is operationalizing all of its I'm not going to use that word, preparedness and response plans, working on multiple fronts, including specific measures to prepare communities to respond to local transmission of the V that causes the CV. Messonnier said, now it's time for business, hospitals, communities, schools, and everyday people to begin preparing as well. So I don't know. I don't think that I would disagree with this article, to tell you the truth. I don't disagree with what it's saying. I disagree with the fact that I don't think that is dropping such a big bomb. I think that is just common sense, if you ask me. Anyway, but I will admit this. The deep state does have a history of announcing things as the president is overseas or as he's preparing to go overseas. So in July 2018, for example, corrupt Rosenstein announced the indictments of 12 Russians right before president was departing on a trip to meet Russian President Putin. Rosenstein reported on these Russians who will never come to the U.S. for prosecution and who likely had nothing to do with anything related to the crimes. Rosenstein's deep state friends, the Democrat Party, regularly schedule hateful events when the president is overseas. Well, that's true, but I wouldn't exactly call this a hateful event. Now, I like the Gateway Pundit, and I respect them, but I don't agree here. Anyway, every Republican senator slammed President Trump when he was at the historic Normandy Remembrance Ceremony, or even Republican senators slammed President Trump. As far as the coronavirus goes, the U.S. has identified 57 individuals with the virus and no deaths. So I don't know. I don't particularly see where this is dropping a bomb. I think what she's saying is true. It's truthful. And I don't know. Maybe her timing was off because he was overseas. I can agree with that. But to jump to the conclusion that she is deep state and she did this on purpose, I think is a little bit of a jump. At this point, we'll have to watch her actions and see. All right, let's go on now. We've got a lot to get through here, so I'm going to have to... All right, let's look at this. It will go quicker as I go down because I've got just little snippets of information. Okay, Los Angeles, this is very important. especially if you are in the Los Angeles region. Korean flight attendant who was in Israel, LA tests positive, Israel and Los Angeles tests positive, frequented Los Angeles Koreatown for 2 days. So this flight attendant, she's Korean, and she was in Israel and also in Los Angeles. And she was, while in Los Angeles, she was around Koreatown, shopping around or looking around for 2 days. How many people did she come in contact with? It's incalculable. And if she was in contact with people, whether she handed money to an attendant or whatever, if she sneezed, I don't know, but if somebody caught it, well, then they're walking around infecting others and they don't know they have it either. Today, some Korean friends reached to ask how Los Angeles was doing in light of the recent news. This took me by surprise. Turns out there is a blurb in the Times of Israel live blog and an article on Yonhap News about the Korean air crew member who spent 2 days in Los Angeles and frequented restaurants in Los Angeles K-Town. Nothing on domestic U.S. news. Gee, I wonder why that would be. Well, I don't think we're being very well informed. And I think that they're trying to keep down panic, but come on. If we don't know what we're dealing with, and if they're not going to be honest with us, how can we, I mean, really, how many people are out there just like this person infecting others and we're completely unaware that they even have it, and maybe they're unaware that they have it. And meanwhile, they're passing it to people who will also pass it to people before they show symptoms and are hospitalized and so forth. That's how pandemics happen. That's how they happen. All right. So there was buzz on Korean social about where this flight attendant went during those days in Los Angeles. The following is a list of restaurants they visited. Hangari, Bajurek, hopefully you guys can see this because I can't pronounce these names. Excuse me. One moment. Anyway, here's one. Honey pig. I can pronounce that. Hanshin Pocha, Han Bat Sul Lung Tang. It seems no one is talking about this outside of Los Angeles Korean community. Interested to see if this becomes a larger story in Los Angeles or even the U.S. over the next few days. Well, no, it hasn't. Not yet. Not yet. But this was a day ago that this was posted. So I don't know. But if you're in Los Angeles, I'd be cautious. And I might be really cautious about going to Koreatown, and that's unfair. It is unfair, but you just don't know. How many people did she run into, and how many people did she spread it to? We don't know. So let's go on. And let's go here. Now this is weird. Very weird. Oh, maybe this is not the one I'm thinking of. The CV map live, the CV hits Northern Ireland. Patient traveled from Italy via Dublin. So it's now in Ireland. Patients in Britain could be turned away from hospitals if medics cannot cope with the amount of cases they have on their hands, a doctor has warned. So, yeah, it definitely is spreading. The NHS would adopt a so-called three wise men system if the number of infected Britons reached catastrophic levels. 3 senior consultants in each hospital would be forced to ration care, such as beds and ventilators, if hospitals were unable to cope and the sheer scale of the crisis. Let me see here. So, yeah, we're not gonna get into more of that. I just basically wanted you to know that it is now in Ireland. And let's look at this. This is a little bit of odd news, if you ask me. South Korean official in charge of CV outbreak commits suicide. Maybe now it could be that he's in trouble with the way he's handled it and he commits suicide, or it could be that he's infected, didn't want to infect others, knew that he might face a terrible end? I don't know, but it seems a little odd, if you ask me. An official from the South Korea Justice Ministry reportedly took his life and jumped off the Han River and died. I guess that would be the bridge, because you can't really jump off a river. In a report on Arirang and Seoul Economic Daily, the man came from the Office of Emergency Safety Planning at the Ministry of Justice. He was in charge of national emergency situations and crisis management. CCTV footage shows that the man indeed got out of his car upon reaching Dongjak Bridge and jumped at around 9 a.m. in the morning. The suicide took place amid the current outbreak of the corona disease in South Korea. Dealing with the recent spike of CV cases is reportedly part of the man's jurisdiction. So there you go. It's sad. I guess that bridge is pretty high. I was going to say it doesn't look like the drop should have killed him, but perhaps he didn't swim either. All right. Let's go back now and see what else. I'm going to come down here. Excuse me. All right, breaking. Iran's former ambassador to the Vatican, Hadi Kuros, okay, I'm not going to butcher his name. Let's call him HK. He has died of CV, and that is Iran's former ambassador to the Vatican is now deceased. All right. Japanese Prime Minister orders the closure of all schools in the entire country for a month. Now, that's not something you do lightly, that any country would do lightly, especially Japan, because they have a very high emphasis on education. So I don't think that this is something that they would ever consider, if not a complete and dire emergency. And let's come down here. This is interesting, if you haven't heard it. Pope Francis falls ill day after supporting people with CV. Now, here's the thing. Yes, he may have it. Yes, he may. But it takes more than just a day to all of a sudden get this. So I don't think that because he's, coughing and sneezing the day after, I don't think he'd catch it that quickly. But who knows who he's been in contact prior to that. Pope Francis has missed a planned mass with clergy in Rome due to an unspecified illness. Oh, that is so sad. Dog who lost its nose after being shot several times find a home in the UK. What is wrong with people? Anyway, I just saw that, and I'm such an animal lover that things like that really bother me. Anyway, the Vatican said the Pontiff 83 had a slight indisposition and would proceed with the rest of his planned work today, but preferred to stay near Santa Marta, the Vatican hotel where he lives. There was no word from the Vatican about the nature of his illness, but the Pope was seen coughing and blowing his nose during the Ash Wednesday Mass. Yesterday, he told well-wishers, "I wish, again, to express my closeness to those who are ill with CV and to healthcare workers who are caring for them." So, let's come down here. It comes amid an outbreak of the strain of CV, also known as, well, not going to say that word either, in Italy that has infected more than 400 people, almost all of them in the north. Rome has had 3 cases, but all 3 have recovered. Francis had been scheduled to go to St. John Lateran Basilica to meet with Rome clergy and celebrate a penitential mass at the start of Lent. The Argentine Pope has generally enjoyed good health. He lost part of his lung as a young man because of a respiratory illness and suffers from sciatica, which makes walking difficult. Well, if he has diminished lung capacity, and he comes down with this, it may not be good. Francis has had a busy schedule lately, including his public general audience on Wednesday and the Ash Wednesday Thursday later in the day in a Roman basilica. Some Lent Ash Wednesday services were canceled or limited in areas of northern Italy hit by the spread of CV. 12 people have died of the disease in Italy, in the worst contagion from the CV so far recorded in Europe. All right, we are going to move on now because there's so much to get to. All right. California's latest patient with CV was admitted to the hospital on February 19th, but was not tested for days because of CDC's narrow testing criteria, officials said, and that from the New York Times. That's not good. That's not good, folks. If they have that strict of criteria for testing, there's probably a lot of people not being tested that should be. I think that's safe to say. But anyway, this person actually did have CV and was not tested for days because they didn't meet the criteria. That says a lot right there. All right. Did tonight's sequence of events really shake anyone else in the U.S.? The developments today, now this would have been yesterday, I believe, New York State announced that they've developed their own public testing labs for CV, validated the tests, and it's being held up by the FDA. So nice of the FDA. There's also a test that is available. It's being sent to Europe, all over Europe, and to Asia, and well, pretty much everywhere in the world except for the United States because it doesn't have FDA clearing, but it's 99.9% accurate test. It's a kit. It's produced relatively, inexpensively, and they're using it everywhere else now, or it's being sent out to everywhere else, but it doesn't have FDA clearance in the States. So don't you think that they should maybe fast track things like that and things like this? Just a thought. CDC gets harangued by experienced doctors at UC Davis into testing a critical pneumonia patient with no connections to existing cases. CDC initially denied the request, but then gave in. It's positive. The patient contracted this in the U.S. weeks ago. The supposed community testing that the CDC announced is actually still being blocked per those same UC Davis doctors. Fully knowing this, the president schedules press conference and fails to acknowledge that this case exists, nor that community testing is still being blocked. Maybe he's not aware. The president is aware of what he's made aware of. Absolutely. But I don't know. I mean, I think the world of President Trump. I think that he is a very good president, but I'm not 100% sure I agree with how this is being handled. I know that he has reasons to not panic the public. I get that. But if there are cogs in the wheels here and things are being held up, then somebody needs to grease those wheels because we don't have a lot of time to waste on this. The president puts a politician, not a doctor or scientist, in charge of the whole CV response without even telling the head of the CV task force. Now, I am thinking he probably had a reason for doing that because I am thinking, this is my thinking. Now, I could be completely wrong, and I admit that. But I think that this was put out there by the deep state. Now, I'm not so ethnocentristic as to believe that it was Trump's enemies that did this. I don't think so. Come on. It's a very big world, and it's not all about the United States. So I think that the cabal, the deep state, is worldwide. It's not just in the States. So I do think that this was the deep state, and it was probably done for depopulation, not depopulation, but a population reduction. And, they need to do that to get to their goal of having a new world order, a one world government. So I don't know, and maybe Trump knows that. Maybe he's being careful of who he puts in because of that. I know he has to be very careful because, well, we all know what's happened. All right, now the U.S. needs to make all CV testing and related care free for all to avoid a catastrophic outcome. I know when, and I lived most of my adult life in the United States and hope to return there shortly. And I know that when I had health insurance, I had great insurance and it was wonderful. But when I didn't have insurance, I remember being very, very ill. I needed to have surgery and I kept avoiding it and avoiding it to the detriment of my own health because I didn't have insurance. And I knew I would be racking up a big bill that I would have to be paying on for over a number of years. So I avoided the hospital. Now, and I'm just being honest, if I didn't have insurance in the United States and I became ill and had flu-like symptoms, I wouldn't go to the doctor. I would try to wait it out at home. And if I felt I needed to go to the hospital, I would be a little bit leery because I know what the bill would be. So, yeah, I do believe that something needs to be done there because you think about it. Think about all the people that won't go to see a doctor because they don't have insurance, and they won't be tested because they can't afford the testing. So I don't know. I think they should at least make all the testing free because otherwise there's going to be no containing it. There really won't be. And you know as well as I know a lot of people that avoid going to the doctor because they don't have insurance. And, you know, yes, I mean, I used to pay out of pocket to go to a doctor, and I think it was $90 out of pocket to go see a doctor. And, you know, yeah, that's affordable, you know, as long as you're not going 2-3 times a week or even once a week, it's affordable. But if you need care, then you have to pay for the medication and all that. And if you need a hospital stay, well, you know. So there you go. No insurance, no social, and no payment for all things related to the outbreak. Preventing mass deaths and economic collapse is worth the medical debt. Anyone think this will happen? No, I don't. I don't think it'll happen. And, you know, the thing is, if we didn't have all those hangers on, and I mean by hangers on, I mean people that are here illegally and getting social services and free medical and everything else, if we didn't have all that, then possibly the U.S. could afford to do that. But I don't see that happening at all. But it's something to think about, isn't it? All right, California is monitoring at least 8,400 people for CV. That's a lot of people. The German state of North Rhine-Westphalia reports 14 new cases of CV. And 578 students found to have fevers on Taiwan's first day of school. Imagine that. That's a lot of students. And they're going to school with a fever. All right. Iranian President Rouhani says there will be no quarantine imposed on any city or place in the country, and the people should not care about the rumors. All right, well, there's a bright light bulb, isn't it? Yeah, that's probably why it's running unchecked in Iran. First U.S. CV case of unknown origin confirmed in Northern California, a sign the CV may be spreading in a local area. All right, and we are going to look at this, which is very sad, actually, very, very sad. China, child found home alone with dead grandfather amid CV lockdown. Anger after 5 or 6-year-old boy was discovered in Hubei during checks by community workers. Young boy in Hubei province has witnessed his grandfather die and remained at home alone afterwards because of CV restrictions, according to local media. Yeah, I mean, what was he supposed to do? He's not allowed out. Some of these people are welded into their homes, and his grandfather died in front of him, and he's left in there. He doesn't, and what's he supposed to do? And now I would assume that he has it as well. The news of the child's ordeal prompted an outpouring of anger online in China in Zhangguan district of the city of Xi'an, which has implemented wartime control to prevent the spread of the virus. That is like martial law, only worse. To prevent the spread of the virus, local community workers on Monday afternoon found an elderly man surnamed Tan who had died at home. His 5 or 6-year-old grandson was also at home. Guo Rubing, vice deputy director of the publicity department of Zhangwan district, told local media. The official did not confirm details posted online that the man had died several days earlier and that the grandson had survived on biscuits. When asked by community workers why he did not seek help, the child reportedly said, "Grandpa said not to leave. There is a virus outside." Oh, I just want to hug that child. Oh, that sounds. Guo told Hoxing News, a government-affiliated media platform, that it's not possible that Tan had died days earlier. Why not? Under the lockdown measures in which residents cannot leave their homes, community workers had been making daily visits to check on residents, asking for their temperatures and if they needed any food supplies. Well, you know what? I think that probably those community workers are like any other workers that, gee, I can skip this house. Nobody will know. Who knows? Who knows? But I do believe that young boy was alone with his grandfather's after his grandfather had died. Guo said the time and cause of Tan's death was still being investigated. He said the grandson was taken into care according to procedure by the district. The child's father is Guangxi province, and because of the lockdown measures on the area, cannot return. When asked whether Tan's temperature was normal before his death, Guo said certainly it was normal. The news caused a flood of criticism online, underlining public frustration and mistrust. Why do they always do such a crappy job of dispelling rumors? One user on Weibo wrote, pointing out that the official could have used the community records to back up his statement. The government always says impossible or absolutely, but who can believe you? Another blamed misinformation from the government, adding the reason why rumors are so common among the people is because they are so in vogue among the government. The lesson from Wuhan is that you cannot trust them. You can only trust your own, one commentator posted. Earlier this month, Zhangwan district was the first to implement official wartime quarantine measures in response to the CV, which emerged in nearby Wuhan, the capital of Hubei province. So I don't know. It's sad, really. And I totally believe that because they don't have a good record of telling the truth. So I don't believe them. I believe that what that boy said happened is what happened. His grandfather died and he was alone, surviving on biscuits. Poor little boy. All right. U.S. CDC, we're asking folks in every sector as well as people within their families to start planning for this. And really, if you haven't started planning, you need to. Really. It's not scare. It's not fear porn. I'm not fear mongering at all. Okay, so get some extra food. If you don't need it, well, great, eat it. That's not. I mean, I lived in Baton Rouge, and there's hurricanes. So, I would always make sure if there was a system out in the Gulf, because I learned my lesson the first time, because once I landed in Baton Rouge, there was a hurricane the very next week, and I didn't know. I had never lived anywhere that had hurricanes, so I didn't know. And people kept saying, "Oh, you need to prepare, you need to prepare." And I said, "Well, what do you do?" Like, "Well, you need to buy this and buy that." Well, by the time I took it seriously, there was nothing left. I lived on SpaghettiOs. My power was out for 8 days. I lived on SpaghettiOs. I lost 10 pounds. And to this day, I cannot look a SpaghettiO in the face. But you know what? Then whenever I'd hear about it again, the next time, I learned my lesson. I would go out and get some extra food. If nothing happened, great, I had extra food. I would get batteries, things like that. So preparing is never in vain, really. As long as you're buying stuff that you'll use eventually anyway, what's the deal? If you don't have money to prepare, then do it cheaply. Get a bag of rice, get some beans. You can live on beans and rice for a very long time. Ask me how I know. I lived on beans and rice for well, close to 2 months when I was in the mosquito rainforest. So, yeah. And I came out very healthy, very, very healthy. So, I lived on beans, rice, and whatever you could forage. All right. First case reported in Northern Ireland. Okay, we already looked at that. And this is about the flight attendant, but we've already looked at that, so we don't need to look at that again. All right, let's look at this. All right, leaked documents reveal CV infections up to 52 times higher than reported figures in China's Shandong province. The CV outbreak in eastern China's Shandong province is much worse than what's been officially reported, according to a series of internal government documents obtained by the Epoch Times. Each day from February 9th to February 23rd, Shandong authorities underreported the number of infections, according to internal data compiled by the Shandong Center for Disease Prevention and Control. And I think that I would have to, I'm not going to enter my email and all that for this, but you can just know that we're not getting the true numbers. And I think we all know that. I mean, I think that's pretty much accepted. Okay, so this is important to know, all right? And this is something positive you can take. It says, inhibition of CV by zinc. There is a study that proves that zinc is a key immune nutrient and up to 20% of people are deficient, particularly the elderly. And the above study also shows that it may impair SARS replication in multiple ways. So, you might want to look into getting some zinc because it does help. I'm not going to say it's not going to cure it, but it could help. All right. South Korea confirms 171 new cases of CV for a total of 505 in one day, overtaking China as the country with the most number of daily confirmed cases. Well, I, for one, don't necessarily believe that the numbers are falling in China. What they've done is they have redefined who qualifies for, say, being counted and who doesn't. If you die of pneumonia, they're saying you died of pneumonia. They're not saying that you died of CV. If you just drop dead on the streets, and what they do is they take you immediately to quarantine, but they don't test you to see if you had it. So they don't add you to the numbers. There's all sorts of things like that. And it's been admitted that they've changed the definition of who is to be counted and who isn't so many times, because they're wanting to keep the numbers down. They don't want people to know how many people have died. They don't, because they're a communist government. They don't want to appear weak to their enemies. All right. After the third confirmed case, all carnival events are canceled in Greece. CV, Lithuania declares state emergency. And Prime Minister Netanyahu, we are the first country to send paramedics to your home to test for CV, so you don't leave the house. Smart. Very, very smart. And thus, experts fear the small number of U.S. CV cases reflect limited testing rather than a lack of infections. If you're not tested for it, then you don't have it, do you? Kind of like, Schrodinger's cat. You might have it, you might not. So anyway, So, CV-infected patient in Gothenburg, Sweden, is expected to have been in contact with at least 40 people. So, we know what will happen in about 20 days or more. There's going to be a whole cluster of people there. And this, Lebanon confirms country's second CV case. And new confirmed case of CV in Gothenburg, Sweden. We just looked at that. And the Norwegian Directorate of Health is planning for 25% of citizens in Norway becoming infected. Wow. 1 in 4 people in Norway. That's what they're planning for. 1 in 4 people. Yeah. Every continent except Antarctica has reported coronavirus cases. First case in the Netherlands, that's today. CV infections on surfaces for up to 9 days. Respirator mask can be helpful, but washing hands will be more effective. Yes, and what I'm doing now is I'm very, very cautious because the people that that Canada brought back from the cruise ship in Japan there, they were flown, probably, what is it, maybe 3 miles from me? Not very far. And so I'm very cautious because when they let them out of quarantine, which was far too soon, the restaurant right beside me here, that's where they all went. And the press was there and Prime Minister and all that. And yeah, I don't go in that restaurant anymore. And what I do is I take the little wipes, the little Purell wipes, and I wipe the cart off. I wipe my hands off. I wash my hands when I come back. Be cautious. And you know what? That's good advice for anything like the flu, cold, anything. So yeah, we should all be doing that. All right. It makes no sense that travelers coming by airport into Canada self-report by touching a touch screen with bare hands. Well, that's Canada for you. Having people land, wash hands, be given hand sanitizer, and maybe disposable gloves, video training on monitors, all can help so much. Governments all over are so slow to react. I agree. And that is just asinine. They're letting people land from wherever. Doesn't matter if it's if it's a hotbed of infection, they're letting them land and self-report by touching the screen. So if you have it, the next person that touches the screen has it too. Nice to share, isn't it? Yeah. And it's true. They should land, wash their hands, be given hand sanitizer and disposable gloves to touch it with. Really. Not that hard, Canada. Okay. CV strikes Pakistan as it finds its way through Iran. First confirmed case reported in Karachi. And Germany is at start of CV epidemic. Health minister, according to the health minister. Deputy Medical University of Qom, that's in Iran. We may need mobile hospitals. Head of the university, 2 of his vice presidents, and 10 doctors and nurses have CV. 2 hospitals have reached full capacity. All right. Yeah, this is kind of old news now, so get rid of that. All right, and this from Sun Q2, conference on CV, VP Pence in charge, more deaths from flu than coronavirus, no vaccine for at least a year, cases with virus are quarantined and virus under control in U.S. I don't believe that. I'm sorry. I don't believe it. I don't know how it can possibly be under control when they've only tested 400 people. Sure, nobody has it. Nobody's been tested. Take precautions, same way you would with flu. Wash hands a lot, cough into arm. Yeah, I don't think... This is far more contagious than the flu. Far more contagious than the flu. So I don't think those measures are really going to cut it. They're not enough. I don't know. I don't personally agree with how it's being handled in the U.S. and Canada. Now, I'm not faulting Trump. I'm really not. I don't know. I don't know how much he knows and how much he's trying to downplay it to keep panic in check. But there are some simple things they could be doing, like testing people, that would, actually go a long way in making sure that it's not spreading. Just in, President Trump puts VP Pence in charge of CV task force. Okay, well, we already know that. And that, no, it isn't. Yes, it is. That's it. That is it for this update. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this uploaded, and I do have another video to do tonight, and I am going to do it because it's only 9:25 p.m. Eastern time, and why the heck shouldn't I? So, all right, guys, thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. This should say February 27th. I guess I'm a day behind. So anyway, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And you guys stay safe. Prepare as much as you can. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Get some hand sanitizer. Any small thing is better than nothing. So thank you guys. And I will keep you updated on this subject and others as well. Okay. Good night, guys.